Welcome. You are at Martechify Chats. It is Friday, February 23rd. We are going to talk about pragmatic AI for right here and right now. This is going to be short. Thank you so much for joining. It's only going to be 30 minutes. So without further ado, I will introduce our host and the fearless leader of Ascend Marketing, Rich Herbst.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the session. And I'd like to do a special welcome to our experts for today. We have Tommi Marsans from Verizon and John McElhenney from Iterativ.ai. And just I'll give each of these a chance to introduce themselves in a second, but very briefly, Tommi is the leader of a major AI initiative for Verizon. She's been doing this for a long time, so she'll have a great depth of insight around that. John recently took the CMO role at Iterativ.ai, and I'll let him describe what that's all about. So let's do just a quick introduction. Tommi, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. So, Tommi Marsans, I'm Associate Director for Decisioning at Verizon Business. And that is, Verizon has two sides. It's the consumer side and the business side. I'm on the business side, so it's very B2B. And I lead the team that builds the next best action with an AI foundation. I've been doing, as you said, I've been doing MarTech for a few decades and seen a lot, know, you know, know a lot of the platforms that have come and gone, and AI is kind of the new wave. So happy to talk about it, happy to talk about how to pragmatically deliver it.
Perfect. John.
All right, here's my parlor trick.
All
My
right.
name is
Hey.
John McElhenney, and I am the new CMO of Iterative AI. That's it. That was it. And I want to wish everybody a happy post NVIDIA overload day, because yesterday was ridiculous. So AI is all we're talking about these days. And today we're excited to talk about pragmatic AI, which means what can you do today with the tools that exist today, regardless of if you're at Tommy's size business or if you're an independent contractor or myself, click this. We're really focused on AI enablement tools for small and medium business. So I love all the talk going on LinkedIn about AI, but so much of it is MIT and this high level stuff. Today, we're going to talk about right now, I want to use Chat GPT to do what? And there's a lot more than a fancy chatbot that we have in mind. Tommy and I and everybody on this call, I'm sure. And so that's it. That's where I'm coming from.
All right. So today is not about long-term vision, grandiose sights, visions around where AI is going. It's not around, oh, it's so spooky. It's not around, oh, isn't this a fun little novelty to try out some things? This is hardworking AI that we put to work right now. John, would you like to lead us off? Sounds like you've got some thoughts in mind already.
Yeah, sure.
When you think about tools that a person like you can and should use right now, and use cases, applications for those tools,
Yeah.
what comes to mind?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, so I think of AI today in my practical terms in those two big buckets, right? Text and generative and image. And those are the two, things that are blowing up on every channel with everybody's getting in the game, right? The big boys are starting to come out. Google's starting to bring their tools out. Everybody's on the way. And so in terms of marketing, in my opinion, the three biggest motions that I find AI uh, awesome for are demand. So, how do you get people to your website? How do you get people to know your business? Engagement. Once they get to your website, what are the kinds of content and things and motions and perhaps a chat bot, right, that can begin to engage the customer once they've hit your website? And then finally, there's a lot of great ways that Chat GPT can help with nurture or engagement and even moving towards the close of a sale. And in my business, even before I joined Iterative, it's really about driving demand through the funnel, ending up in the result that we want, which is a sale, a download, and the right to contact, right? So if I can get your email address, we're beginning a conversation. And the AI tools today, both image and generative text, are mind-blowingly powerful in what they can do. It's the challenge for us as people that want to use those tools is figuring out the right prompt to ask Chat GPT. Or in the case of the new GPTs that are rolled out, there are GPTs that are written specifically for demand gen. And if you can find that one, you can go in and ask your question a little more broadly. And so those are the main areas that I like to focus on: demand, engagement, and nurture versus closing. And then we have generative text, image, and there's a whole, everything else is coming as well. And I'm sure Tommy
Good
can
start.
talk about her.
Good start, John. What tools? Can you rattle off some specific tools that you use or that you think people should use right now?
Yeah, my favorite one is Perplexity. It's the new sort of AI that's actually going after Google search. And what I love about it is once you've done your query, not only are all the sources listed, but it creates an artifact at the end that you can share. And then the entire chat with all of its sources becomes a resource that's just a link. It's my favorite one. Chat GPT is amazing and all the different GPTs. I love Claude AI, which is a different version. It's some people that came from OpenAI. And then, of course, Gemini is the new Bard. They all have features and benefits. And what I recommend is it sounds weird, and every time I say it, it sounds weird, but begin engaging these AIs in conversations, and you will begin to learn what their strengths and weaknesses are and maybe how you can use them.
Good deal. Thank you, John. Tommy, now you're coming in from a different angle. You've got some very specific applications in large firms, but I know you have expertise across a range of things. What's your take? What are tools that organizations like yours and individuals like you can and should be using right now?
So, first, what I want to say is what AI is, and I think there's kind of a big, it's a big black box for a lot of people, and they don't really kind of understand um, not only the application of it, but how it kind of works. And so, to break it down to its core, AI is an approach. So it's not a specific tool. It's not going to be Bard. It doesn't have to be chat. It can be an approach to solving a problem. And usually those problems have thousands, if not more, outcomes. So think about the number of ways you could say, come visit my webpage. And those thousands or even millions of ways to do that, you're looking for the one that really works for that one-to-one kind of experience to drive somebody to do something. And when you're thinking about where do you want to apply it, that's when you kind of get into the tool set. So the application of it will define what tool you use. And again, the whole point that you made about having the right prompts, I think is really important. You can also apply it to the imaging and the content. You can apply it to any point along that journey. You can discern where somebody is in a micro journey, whether it's onboarding or it's nurturing, or the entire customer profile journey, from beginning to end, from awareness to renewal. So if you think about the problem set, and then that gets you to the tool that you want. And what I would recommend is, if you have the ability to do so, limit and you were saying, John, about the transparency and the links. If you have the ability to do it, limit it to a certain set of things that are already baked in. So if you have a library of images, focus it on those library of images. If you have a library of content or messaging, use that content and messaging. And it will learn more about what your voice is or what your brand is. And so while I wouldn't necessarily prescribe a particular tool, I would say think about the problem statement, think about the business case, and then go after the tool that solves for that. Because it's an approach and not a specific tool.
Very good. Good. So, Tommy, when you think about tools, specific tools that can and should be used now, what comes to mind for you? And again, in a corporate setting or other.
So I think the one that is being used most often right now, and we are actually limited in using it, is any kind of open AI, chat, GPT, any. It really goes back to three major players, right? So any of those kinds of open AI will go resource three different major players. So really, any of those tools, sometimes they're free, sometimes they're pay per use. But the use of those, again, like John was saying, is very much based on the prompt that you use. You might have to prompt it 2 or 3 times to get what you really want. I think probably the starting point for most people, and this is where I started with Chat GPT. I can't use it at work because we're barred from using it at
So
work.
you're prevented from using any OpenAI product right now. Wow.
Yeah, because in order to use it, you have to participate in it. So
It's a
you
link.
have
Yeah. I mean, it's a leak in fact.
yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
So how I started really was using Chat GPT to write social media posts for personal use. And
Right.
you can just start there. Like you were saying, John, it could be, a company of one, a sole proprietor doing that. And it might take a couple of prompts to get to where you want to go. But I mean, even Facebook has it now where it's like do you want a longer? Do you want a shorter post?
Yeah.
Right? That's using OpenAI.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Can I ask each of you guys to give us a short story? What is a usage of AI that you think is cool, you think is impressive, or you think is just people should know about? Can you just paint the picture? Here's what it's like to use it. Here's the steps I had to go through. Here's kind of the watch outs.
Hmm.
So I'll start from the big company view because I've been in companies of every single size. But from the big company view, if you're looking to take on a big use case, a big problem, um, where I see what we're using, um, which is a larger platform for next best action, where I see that really shine is when you're trying multiple things. So I want to test this creative with maybe that word change. And traditionally, we've had to do A/B testing or maybe multivariate testing. This takes that to a whole new level. That's what machine learning is, right? Is hundreds of variables being tested against each other all of the time. And I mean, I think if you have the resources and you're able to leverage some of the larger players, absolutely, that's where you could go.
Good
Yeah.
deal. Could you just say a little more about next best action or next best? And I know you also think about next best experience. What does that, as just a concept, what does
As a
that look
concept,
like? Yeah.
yeah. So the holy grail for marketers has always been this one-to-one marketing, right? We've always talked about a segment of one and one-to-one personalized marketing, and we've really gotten there by micro segmentation. This really is a conversation. It looks at your profile, it looks at what your account is, it looks at everything about you that you can feed into it, and comes up with the next best action. I mean, it really is what it says. So, um, I, for example, might have just purchased a product and I didn't purchase an accessory with it, and I didn't really purchase any services with it because I didn't really understand what services I wanted, and maybe I was going to go shop somewhere else for an accessory. This will come up with the next best action for you, which could be, yeah, call us back because you need some insurance on your phone. The way that you use it, you're going to want insurance on that. Or the way that you use your phone, you might not need earbuds, but you're definitely going to need a really robust phone case. And it expands to all kinds. This is just specific to telecom, but it expands everywhere, right? What are companion products for you? What are accessories for you? And again, that holy grail of one-to-one marketing, this really delivers on that promise.
Nice. No, that helps a ton. Thank you, Tommy. How about you, John? Paint us a picture.
Well,
Something you.
yeah. So what I wanted to pick up on, and I understand the OpenAI thing. They're the ones that have been sued by the New York Times, obviously, for using the content of the New York Times to fill their LLMs with all this information. We're going to have a battle about that in the future. And Verizon obviously has said, just don't use it because you can't trust it, right? So in theory, everything you upload to it is going somewhere and being stored in the cloud. Anyway, but the big boys, OpenAI and Chat GPT, is where I got really started with with interacting. And so what I would like to advise everybody on the call is to go in and play with ChatGPT. Just ask it anything, see what it comes up with. It will, as it does its work, it then will come up and give you 3 prompts that it thinks might be what you're looking for, and you can just continue along that route. It's phenomenal. And but then you really owe it to yourself, and I'll put the links in the chat, to subscribe, even just for 1 month. It's $20, I think, a month to subscribe to OpenAI. And what you get for that is 2 major things. One is the GPT marketplace. And so now that they've given us the ability to build our own and market them, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of GPTs that people have created. And one that this group might be really interested in, and Tommi touched on the subject, is there's one that's specifically written to help you define and generate brand specific content. So you train it on your brand's voice, and then it will start spitting out your PR or your content in your brand voice. It's phenomenal. You will think it's magic when you start playing with it. The last part is, for that $20, and I don't work for OpenAI, right? This is not a pitch. For that $20, you also get the ability to go ahead and start building your own. And what's really cool about that, and it is a walled garden, even though Tommi can't use it, she probably can in person. So when you have your own account and you build your own GPT, you can say, here are 5 PDFs. Just use this data now and summarize it. Like, for example, responding to an RFP. You just put that whole entire thing into your own GPT, and then you can ask it questions like, write me an introductory paragraph that's going to land this contract. I mean, it's unbelievable what it can do right out of the box. And the most practical example, and I'm almost done, really is, for me, if you start imagining yourself looking for a new job, one of the things that GPT is really good at is summarizing anything that you give it and then doing version after version of making it better or just different. So go into your resume, take your bullet points of a job you had 10 years ago and say, rewrite these bullet points, use industry terms, and then you can say things like, make it snappy, right? I mean, you can be kind of funny and playful with these things, and there's a lot of information in there, but rewriting your resume is a killer first use of GPTs it's unbelievable. I'm bored to tears trying to rewrite a resume of a job I had 15 years ago. Yes. ChatGPT, it never gets tired. And at the end of its finish, it says, do you want more? Do you want me to give you a new variation? So endless variations. You can go down that rabbit hole and lose a whole afternoon. But I encourage you to really understand the GPT world and look at the marketplace and see what's already been built, because they're phenomenal and they're already rising to the top, right? The top 10 tools that are GPTs that people are releasing into the world are right there. You go to that page and they're all going to show you, these are the ones everyone's using. And then there's everybody else. And you should maybe build your own and put it in there and see if people want to use it. So I don't know if there's rev share or not, but.
So let me play off of that a little bit. There's a couple of things in there. The term training the AI. If you're not familiar with that, basically what John walked through was training the AI. You point it at an outcome and you give it multiple scenarios in which to get to that outcome, and that trains the AI. When you do that, just be cautious, especially if you have your own AI, right? You've built your own library of outcomes, whether it's a resume or, filling out a form, or it's really good with the mundane and repeatable. And that's why it's really good at this kind of form stuff. Just be cautious about baking in your own bias. And I'm not talking about ethical bias. I'm talking about bias towards an outcome. You probably have 4 or 5 ways. Humans kind of have 5 to 7 ways in which they'll approach a problem, and they're really limited to that. So know that these engines can do millions of approaches. And so your 7, it's going to learn your 7. And if you say, okay, those are the 7 I want you to use, those are all you'll ever use. So just know that you're kind of baking in that bias, baking in that tendency to do the same thing over and over and over again. And you might want to introduce some novelty in it so that you can get new and novel ways of approaching a problem. So, you know, if you're leveraging your own content, you're leveraging your own library of resources, just know that baked in there is your way of doing things. And if you want that to change or do it better, you've got to build in some novelty.
And the novelty is thinking outside the box, right? Ask it something crazy. Ask it something that you think it has no way of generating an answer, and you will be surprised what it comes up with. Hello.
Good.
Yeah, well, look at you, nice and center, all framed up. That's
Look at you, Tommy. I don't think that's I think that was accidental, but
All right, very cool. Hey, let me just ask. So for the folks on the call that are listening in
yeah.
that have not logged into ChatGPT or have not tried a something, could you just take a minute or so, either of you guys, and just walk through? Here's the steps. And John, you shared a few of these before, but let's just recap them. Like, here's a thing to try, like literally this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Go to this,
Sure.
then do these 1, 2, 3 steps. What would that be?
I mean, I'm happy to take a run at that.
Okay.
I spend a lot of time with ChatGPT. I'm trying to spend a lot more time with the others because that's the part that I think is fascinating, right? The novelty that Tommy was talking about is how do we get out of our own box? How do we get out of our own way and do something unexpected, right? And so each of these, the 4 big players, or there's 3 big players, and I call Perplexity something a little bit different. But of the 3 big players, they all have different flavors. And one of the differences, big one, is Bard, which is now Gemini, has the entire internet as its LLM. So when I ask Bard or Gemini about Jack Kerouac, and I say, hey, how many Jack Kerouac titles do you have access to? It lists the whole thing, everything, his letters. So, but then you go try to talk to OpenAI or ChatGPT about Jack Kerouac, and it'll say, well, I don't have access to any of his original work, but I can summarize and I can tell you all about Jack Kerouac. And I just find that kind of fascinating that they're in 2 completely different worlds.
but
And that's
you
kind of
could ask Chat GPT to write something in the style of Jack
the
Kerouac.
style of,
Do it, right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good. Let's run with that one for a second,
Yeah.
Tommy. So what would be the blow by blow? I log into ChatGPT. I
Yeah,
enter.
so it pops up a
Thing.
little bubble. It's like you're texting somebody,
Mhm.
and you type in write write 2 paragraphs on OpenAI in the style of Jack Kerouac, make it funny, and add in some jokes. And it'll do that for you, right? It'll pop up and it's great when it comes to words. Fantastic when it comes to words. Images is going to be a little bit different, but yeah, if you want to just use ChatGPT, take your next social media post, whether it's LinkedIn, X, whatever. Drop the content in and say, write a social media post for LinkedIn or for whatever the channel is using the below content, make it funny.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've
Good.
got a couple really cool recent discoveries that I didn't come up with, but I read them and then I went and tried them. But they're pretty phenomenal, and I would have never, like Tommy said, I'd have never come up with it. I'd have never thought this up. But once someone does, and we let it out of the box, right? So one of the things that I learned, like literally last week, if people are familiar with the Myers-Briggs set, right? You can actually say, write me a cover letter to the job hiring manager who I think is an INFP. And just that parameter, it goes to town. And so I'm an ENFP, and I used to work for an INTJ. We were almost opposite on both things. We saw the world completely differently. And if you go in and you say, write this paragraph to an ENFP, it'll give you one thing, and then do it again and go through the types, maybe what you are. And it's that is a transformer, right? So that's called a transformation.
Yes.
When you give it an in the style of, or write it to a, long lost lover. I mean, you can, anything you can think of, just throw it in there and see what comes out. It's
So
hilarious.
I'm an ENTJ, so your paragraph would probably be long. My paragraph would be bullet points, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then there's one last one that I find humorous, and it goes into the language thing. Chat GPT is fantastic at writing limericks, right? Anything you can think of, someone's name, what they do, write a limerick, and bam. And it's the best. I mean, you can't write them that fast or as well. It's terrible. And this was one of my stump the chumps. It's terrible at writing free verse. Now it knows what free verse is, but when you say, and this is an example of what's happening, when you say write a poem in free verse about X, it will give you a rhyming poem. And you'll say, wait a minute, I asked for free verse. And it'll go, oh, that's right, I'm sorry, here's one in free verse. It'll still rhyme.
Because its
And what
definition of poem,
exactly
is
Yes.
rhyming.
the poem feature is overriding anything else I say. And so free verse has to be trained, and it's not there yet, right? So people are writing limericks, they all rhyme. Anyway, I find that fascinating. I've done a lot of work trying to get it to write poetry. And then last, I've got one more thing, but it's pretty funny, and I did it today. I saw a post about this type of transformation, and it used the word improv, no E on the end, and then it showed what the predictive words were that Chat GPT was going to come up with. And I said, well, this is a fun example. Let me go to Chat GPT, and this right ties into Tommy. I said, write me a 3-minute stand-up improv session on AI and dating, and make it funny. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. So it gave me a script, and it was funny. It's all on my website. And then I said, okay, now make it a little more racy or edgy. I use the word edgy, and make it from the perspective the comedian is a woman, and give it from her perspective. And it did it again. And then you just keep going, right? And so then I said, well, that was great, but can you make it even more edgy? And it will start pushing back. It says, what I think you mean by edgy is this, but I'm not going to do any of this. But here's another one that's a little more edgy, right? And I did it a fourth time just for fun. Then I went, just in this example, to Perplexity, the one that I keep talking about. And I said the same question. It was terrible. It didn't even get close. So I didn't use that on my post, but that's why the writer's strike happened. It is absolutely fast and unbelievable at being able to get humor and what a joke might be, and even improv, which is really amazingly complex, right?
Yeah,
You
one
take
thing I
this
do want
word.
to, before we wrap up, one thing I do want to point out there, John, by telling everybody to build limericks, is training the AI
Oh yeah.
to focus on what a limerick is, right? And
Yep.
so that's what training is. That's what training the model is continually asking it something and then rewarding it and saying,
Totally.
yep, that's the thing I wanted.
Totally. Yeah.
Super
No, that's
great.
great.
Super great. Well, thank you guys. This has been fun, fabulous. I've learned some new things, so thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tommy. Thank you, John. Fabulous
Awesome.
session here. I think we
Do
have
we have time for a
questions and
couple
things bubbling
questions?
from the chat. So let me give it to
Yeah.
Sure.
Tina. I think she's going to do a few wrap-up thoughts.
Yeah,
And by the way, I think we're going to have some Q&A time after we formally close the event. So I would invite anybody to stay on.
yeah, hang
But
around
Tina,
if you'd like a little bit more Q&A, invite you to hang around. We do have 2 questions in the chat I'd like to just toss over to Tommy and John. One question from Lamia is that she's learned that AI tools can do video promotions, and I've seen they're getting better. Do you think this will replace or reduce the need for creative talent and optimize marketing and training budgets? What are your thoughts on video?
Yeah.
Let me just jump in here real quick. Yes, I'm gonna let John kind of play on that, but I would say be cautious because people are now seeding their videos and seeding their images to disrupt the AI. So you might end up with something
Absolutely.
that's dreaming, and dreaming means it's like bizarre.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, there's actually a movement. It's called Nightshade. And it's an app that is injecting the wrong answers and the wrong prompts and the wrong training because the people that don't want AI to take over or want ChatGPT to die, they're doing mainly it's the 3.5, which is the one you get at when you don't subscribe. It's mainly that one, but they've shown over time in the last year, it's actually getting dumber because people are focusing it on the wrong things. And then I want to go into the image thing because I've done a lot about these videos, and there are tools that are frightening, absolutely frightening. And I'm a creative, right? So this is what your question is right at what I do. So yes, and it's terrifying because I can literally take this tool that I wrote a post about called Iterativ.ai, and I'll put that link in the chat too. And you just say, here's the URL, do a video for TikTok, right? So in the top up down frame, and make it 60 seconds long. And it does it. And it does it. And so you've got this young person usually, and she's saying, well, I just read John McElhenney's new book, and it is a game changer. Trust me, you need to read this. I'm a single mom, yada, yada, yada.
Wow.
Well, it's all a lie. She didn't, and she's not real, but it is
That's a
so
really
good.
that's a really good point.
It's
If you
free.
if you focus it on a particular thing, like you were saying, like do it for this website, that's a really good use of it. If you're just in general, produce me a video that has dragons in it or whatever, that's when that kind of weird variability gets in there. But yeah, that's a really good
Yeah.
use case where you're focusing it in on a particular set of content.
Yeah, and one of the funny things about AI originally, it's getting better and better. When you'd say to generate a person or a human or Taylor Swift or anything like that, they always end up with like five fingers and it's all distorted because they can't actually use the image. But the finger thing was so weird, and somebody even made a glove that had multiple fingers to mess up regular imagery to make it look like it was done by messed up AI.
So
Oh,
I will tell
wow.
you, I made a social media post just for fun for one of my fitness classes. And I said, okay, generated picture of Tommy Marsans
There you go.
teaching a body combat class.
Yep.
And I came back looking like Vishnu. I had like 8 arms and
Oh yeah.
things coming out of it everywhere. That's called dreaming. And it was very
Yeah.
bizarre. And I posted it because I wanted people to see like, if you leave a prompt open like that, that's what you're going to get, right? You got to be really specific.
Yeah. And
Oh,
everybody's
that's
seen the Sora demos that came out last week, right? Of the woman walking in Tokyo, and I created a video about that too, and I actually used it as an audio, as a music video for one of my songs. But it is the people are freaking out, and even Tyler Perry today said he's slowing down his $800 million movie studio because these videos showed him that AI is going to wipe them out. There's no reason to put that much money into a studio. So it's changing the industry right here, right now, in so many ways.
wow.
Scary, a little bit scary.
We have a consensus from the chat that we might need to extend an entire session to continue talking about this particular topic.
Yeah.
We have one more question from Kelty Monroe. She's wondering what could or would be the next big advancement that you see in the next 6 months? Any predictions?
Wow. Oh
I
gosh.
do. I do, and it's scary.
Oh
What
Lord.
else? Yeah, what I'll say is what you think AI is being trained at, if you fear or you hope AI is being trained at, it is. It is. Everybody's using that approach. So the next thing that's going to come is really customized experiences wherever you go. I mean, John, you talked about that Blade Runner experience. Think about Total Recall as he's going through the airport and these customized, images are coming at him. I don't think that's too far away, actually.
No, it's when you see this, the tool is called Sora, and it hasn't been released to the public yet. They've just released 4 or 5 videos of it. I'm one of those wooies or whatever they are that are obsessed with Japanese culture. They went right at me, right? The content is for me. It's for Blade Runner. It's for the Blade Runner sci-fi enthusiasts, and it is so good that you will freak out a little bit. I mean, it's literally captured the imagination of everybody.
I think one of the things that you'll also see, which is not in the future, I think it's here and people are just starting to use it, is using it as a wiki. So wrapping
Oh,
kind of a
that's a great
wiki
idea.
around it for training or for search or whatever. You can use it internally, you can use it externally, but basically crawling through your content, whether you have a web page or you have a database, and you can just say, okay, where's this bit of data, or where is this file, and it'll go find it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great pitch at the end here again for play around with perplexity because it will go find stuff that you've forgotten about and bring it all back to you. Like law clerk, that whole industry's gone
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's going to be able to do all the citations and give you all the listings in minutes that take a law clerk all night. It's going to disrupt everything. And so go play with perplexity because it will bring back results. And that's called RAGs, regenerative augmented generation. That means it retrieval, augment, add more data, and then spit it back out. And it's phenomenal.
That's actually a really good point. I don't know that you were making this point, but generative AI, that is kind of the buzzword of the day. And all generative AI means is what we're talking about. It takes a bunch of data and generates something new from it. That's it. That's all
Yeah.
generative AI means.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you keep hearing, here's what the 6 month question goes to, which is what we're all hearing also is one level beyond that. And they call it artificial generative intelligence. So AGI.
Hmm.
And that's a long way off, but that's when the web wakes up, right? That's when the AI begins to have self-consciousness or creativity. And that's one of my big points is AI is not creative. It's very good at math and it uses sets of data that are bigger than the human can even confirm, but it's not good at writing poems. It's just not. It's good at writing limericks because those are follow a mathematical formula. But it can't tell you, my example is think of the word loss as a human. It's going to fire all kinds of memories in your brain, your neural network. AI thinks of it in terms of addition and subtraction. And then even if it's Gemini and it goes out and looks at all the poetry ever written that contain the word loss, it's going to come back with something like melancholy, but it can't understand a human emotion. It doesn't have that much context. Your brain is 100x bigger than the biggest LLM, even if you're not that smart.
And that's another really good point. Always keep a human in the loop. Don't let
Yeah.
it go by itself. Always keep a human in the loop.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where the danger is, right? That AI is going to start spinning up and doing stuff on its own that we don't know about. And it probably already is happening.
That's a
Fortunately.
great point. And we do have one more question from the chat. I think while we're doing this last question, Gabby, if you could put up our next events so
Nice.
anybody that has to jump on can see what's coming up next. Uh, we have in-person happy hour that I put in the chat, a link to the sign up for Basking Ridge, New Jersey, if you happen to be in that area.
Cool.
If you're in the Virginia area, stop by Ashburn, meet people in person. What a great opportunity to network and get to know your colleagues. And then on the 19th of April, we'll have another session like this on integrative analytics, platforms, and tools. If you know anybody who'd like to be an expert for Martechify, please have them reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. And with that, we'll officially end the session, but feel free to stick around for a little bit more Q&A. If you have any more Q's, put them in the chat. Chad Milligan writes, what you're describing about a lot of these are personalized AI personalization. And Chad is wondering if any of the big players, like for example, Adobe,
Yes.
have commented on packages and offerings that can more easily stand up a personalization data cloud simply based on a working CDP.
Yep. Absolutely. And If you have enough money, you can pay for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Working, what'd you say? What was the last? A working what?
CDP?
Work,
Oh, CDP.
customer data platform, like a CDP.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, not to tip our hand, but I know of some larger companies that are doing that right now.
Yeah. And one of the things that, if you've seen the Salesforce ads with Matthew McConaughey in them, one of the things Salesforce is doing, it's an advantage to all of us, is they're teaching the general public about this problem with LLMs and the reason that Tommy can't use OpenAI. And it's a great ad. It's funny. You know, it's AI is the wild, wild west. It's Matthew McConaughey. He's talking about the wild, wild west. And he says, your data is gold. So who's using your gold? Who's looking at your gold? Who's protecting your gold? That's it. That's the question. How are we going to keep it safe? Right? If WikiLeaks opens up their AI, all that stuff is going to be flooded into the LLMs as truth, whether it's real or not. It's a big, massive question.
Yeah, so free is not free.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, if you've been around some of the big players for long enough, you know, free is not free. What you pay to play is your data. That's what you're giving away, is your data, whether it's your company data or your personal data. I mean, I have a son who's about 20, and well, he's not about 20, he actually is 20. But he has no expectation of privacy.
Yeah.
He comes from a generation that's just baked into how they behave, right? They have no expectation of privacy. We kind of have that expectation of privacy still, and I know some people who are totally off the grid. And I'm like, you're not totally off the grid. If you walked past any store recently or went to Vegas at all, you're not off the grid. But I will tell you, one of my favorite uses of AI is Amazon Fresh. I could
Nice.
go into the store, I could buy what I want without talking to a human being, and I can walk out without ever bringing out my wallet.
Wait, and that's a good thing.
I love it, right? There's probably, and this is not hyperbole, about 5,000 cameras
Yeah.
in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it because later it says, oh, you tend to buy this thing or
Yeah.
you kind of hover around this thing. What about you purchase it next time? I'm like, oh, yeah, I did forget to buy the chocolate chips.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing, I wish I had written it, but I didn't. The thing about Facebook is if you're not paying, your data and you are the product. You're
Right.
what's being sold, right? So the reason Facebook doesn't have a paid version without ads, you don't have that much money. They're making so much money selling your personal data off Facebook that you couldn't afford it if they made a paid version.
So let me go back to the Adobe question. Larger companies can have a private cloud and they can lock down their CDP. Smaller companies can't afford to do that. And so the answer is yes. But to John's point, how much do you want to pay for it, whether it's monetary or with information and data?
Yeah, and that's my recent job was for the largest data center owner in the world. And what's happening there is people are realizing how expensive it is to keep your stuff in the cloud, right? And they're having to bring it all back down and only keep the relevant expensive stuff, and especially if it's healthcare, financial, customer data. And Adobe is coming out with some amazing AI tools. Um, and I'm already at AI overload, right? It's starting to offer me assistance in every app, every platform. And I'm like, no, it's actually getting in the way. Do you want me to write this email for you? I'm like, no, thanks, but no. So it's coming and it's going to be everywhere. And like Tommy said, I wasn't taking a slam at you, right? The way that it can look at a video of a bookshelf, panning through a bookshelf, and then give you a list of all the links to Amazon for every one of those books.
Mhm.
My son used it to identify a shoe that somebody was wearing on late night TV. He said, "Oh, I love that boot." He zoomed in, threw it into Chat GPT, and said, "What is this? Where's it from?" And it found it and gave him a link to buy it.
Wow.
Bah,
So
bam.
what I did this morning, well, two instances of AI that happened this morning, and they're not really marketing related, but you could
Who
leverage
did
it this
that?
way, right? I took a picture of a bird outside my window, and I was like, what bird is that? Is that a blue jay? What is that? And I did a big circle around it in my picture, and it was, oh, this is a house martin.
Yep.
So you could use that in marketing to say, what is that thing, right? To answer the
Yep.
question about what is that thing.
Yep.
And then secondly, you guys don't know this, but as we were warming up, there was some whistling going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a couple of us were whistling. Not me because I can't whistle. That's a fun fact about me.
Yeah. Tina's whistling and it's canceling it.
Yeah,
It's actually making sound, but we can't hear
yeah.
it.
See?
We do have one more follow-up question on CDPs, which I think is, if we have a couple more minutes, worth asking. It's a really great question from Lamia. How does AI impact CDPs, particularly the molding and of the buyer journey and crafting of intricate personas? These platforms do play a very central role in shaping strategies, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
So I will weigh in because this is kind of a hot topic of the day for me personally, in what I do on a day-to-day basis. Um, how it shapes is what information you feed it. So the information you feed it shapes the journey, right? And for us right now, we're still learning, and that means response data. If I do something, stimulus, and then what's the response? So that's the kind of data you want to make sure is happening so that you get that. Was it good? Was it a good effort or was it not a good effort? Did it result in the thing I wanted or did it not? And as much of that kind of response data you can get back in there, whether it's did they click, did they ignore, whatever that is, that's really important. That will craft that overall journey. And then you go from micro journeys, which is did they click on this ad or did they buy that product, to an overall journey, which is what happens in the initial learning phase that has an impact way later on, right? That's the 2.0, but initially just grab all of that response data that you can get.
That's really great. Rich, any last minute wrap up thoughts or ideas from your end?
Other than, wow, there's a mountain of things to talk about here. I think we all knew this coming in, but boy, this session emphasizes that, wow, there's a lot. There's so many facets, even if we try to narrow it down as we did today. I sense a follow-up session coming up. So I would love to have a conversation, see what we might put together, because this is just an absolute gold
Yeah,
mine.
it'd be fun to actually go in and show one of these tools doing it and
Yes.
show how someone
Yeah.
that spent a lot of time writing prompts. It's not me necessarily. I've done a lot, but like I had a writer that helped write this entire website with Chat GPT. He became a master. And the in the style of is like the baby steps. You can go as far out as you can imagine. The prompts actually can be very large, can be hundreds of words. And it might be fun to actually do a live demo on one of these to show it.
As long as we don't get too edgy, right?
Edgy is not the word I was thinking of. No.
Wow, guys, this has been amazing, and we definitely have lots of demand for follow-up. So we'll get on that. The Martechify team here. Thanks again for joining, and we'll wrap it up for today.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
Have a
awesome.
great weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.